Ned Fulmer might have actually redeemed himself. Hello everyone, and welcome back to The Chanel, the disgraced try guy who betrayed his wife, his entire family, his friends, and even his colleagues, while simultaneously sabotaging his entire company and career just for some cheap thrills. If you have not been keeping up with Ned Fulmer, I recommend going and watching my first two videos on him, as those will definitely catch you up. But if you want the too long didn't watch version, Ned was ousted as a cheater and basically destroyed his entire life. And now he's trying to make a comeback with his own podcast called Rock Bottom and his own YouTube channel where he creates content very similar to what he was doing when he was still part of the Try Guys. A couple weeks ago, Ned did a live stream, and call me crazy, but I actually think he came off as likable. And I almost feel like if he had shown this version of himself when he first came back to the internet, I feel like people would have been a lot more open to hearing him out and seeing his new content. His debut episode of his podcast with his ex-wife Ariel was certainly very curated, and it really did feel like Ned hadn't changed at all from his time on the Try Guys. You could just tell that he was really trying to come off as likable, like he was taking accountability for everything that he did, and that he was truly trying to work on himself and improve his life for the sake of his family and his kids. But people clocked him immediately because he just seemed really phony. It didn't seem like he had actually learned any lessons during his time away, and didn't really address the reason that the entire internet was so mad at him. He danced around the cheating subject constantly, and somehow came ill-prepared, yet too curated for people to take him seriously, because the way he was interviewing his wife was almost as if he was not the person who betrayed her, but rather a third party who was mediating between him and Ariel. And again, the audience was not happy with him when he posted a video on his channel where he reveals that he has MS and has been struggling with it for over a decade now. But don't get it twisted. The audience was not upset that he was sharing that he had MS and was not shaming him in any ableist sort of way, but was frustrated with him because he seemed to be using his diagnosis to garner sympathy points. And naturally, that did not sit right with a lot of people. But as I mentioned, a couple weeks ago, Ned went live and did a Q&A where people were asking him some pretty tough questions. And surprisingly, I actually felt like he was being more authentic and honest than he had ever been in his entire career as a creator. One of the questions that a viewer asked him was what was going through his head when he betrayed his entire family. And he basically said that he was acting selfishly and that he was rationalizing his choices even though they were hurting someone that he really loved, and that his thinking was delusional.
I'd like to hear what was going through your mind when you did what you did to your family. It's a tough question to answer. I think it starts with you being selfish and just doing something because you want to, and it continues because you are delusional and you hide how much you're actually hurting people with all a manner of rationalizations and justifications. So that's how it can, what was going through my mind, and I think what goes through a lot of other people's minds that do that.
And while I think that's extremely similar to what he had said in his podcast episode with Ariel,
I think there was a lot of delusions and rationalizations that you, as the person doing that, are telling yourself.
It felt a lot more organic and genuine. And I felt like I did see a little bit more remorse and genuine remorse than anything he ever showed in the podcast. Honestly, though, I don't really think that anything he says to explain his thinking at the time will satisfy anyone, because it was a really selfish thing to do, and I feel like the internet has every right to be still mad at him for that, regardless of his reasoning. Someone else in the chat said that they didn't understand why Americans were so upset by Ned's actions, because at the end of the day, Ned is the one in charge of his own life. And I don't know, maybe I'm being bamboozled, maybe I'm falling for the trick, but I genuinely believed him when he said that he understood why everyone reacted the way that they did, and that they all had a right to act the way that they did.
Hello from Greece. I don't get why Americans overreacted about a bad life choice of yours. It's your life after all. I think there are more serious issues than roasting or cyberbullying Ned. Well, thank you for saying that. I get why people reacted the way they did, but I also know that it's something that a lot of people confront, and a lot of people's lives evolve in different ways. Breakups, marriages. I don't know. I feel like that was a bad answer, but I don't really know what to say about it because I don't know. People are entitled to react the way they want to. Like it wasn't just about cheating. It was also about a relationship with an employee. It wasn't just anyone cheating. It was someone that like represented themselves as a wife guy. And it was like a big story because it was a, well-known cast breaking up. And it wasn't just me and my own, it was like me, like kind of getting ousted from, I don't know. It's like that would be news even if there wasn't any scandal attached to it. So those are some of the reasons why people reacted the way they did. But I don't know. Is it fair? Doesn't matter. Past that.
I think as a viewer, it's really easy to get wrapped up in a creator's life and feel like you're involved and feel emotionally hurt when a creator does something that seems to be so out of character from who they present themselves to be. And perhaps that's just a human trait that all of us have. I believe, whether we like it or not, humans just tend to be more trusting and build these relationships parasocially, whether they intend to or not. And when someone that they look up to seems to betray the trust that they had in them, even if they don't know them personally, it can leave some emotional wounds. One prominent example that comes to mind is when Bill Cosby was outed for all of his disgusting behavior behind the scenes because he seemed like America's dad. His reputation to the public was so good, and the public felt so betrayed when they learned that he actually was not the person that they thought he was. And I'd say that's pretty similar in Ned's case, though definitely not to that scale. But Ned did present himself as a wife guy, and the Try Guys brand comes across as very morally aligned and social justice oriented. And so Ned straying from that public image was more than just a shock, because just as much as he betrayed his family, his friends, his colleagues, he betrayed his fans as well. And whether you believe it's healthy or unhealthy, that can leave some significant emotional wounds. But anyway, I do appreciate that Ned acknowledged that he understood why people reacted so strongly, and that he seemingly also understood the weight of his action for not only the people in his life that he interacts with on a day-to-day basis, face-to-face, but also for his supporters who watched him for so many years and felt this emotional attachment to him before their entire perception of him completely shattered. Something I found really interesting was when someone asked him if he felt that he was less judgmental now because of everything that happened, and I thought his response was interesting because he basically admitted that yes, in the past he was very judgmental and felt that because he was rich and famous, he became egotistical, and since he thought so highly of himself, he tended to judge other people pretty harshly.
Am I less of a hater now that you have a lot of haters? And do you find yourself to be less judgmental, or is that something you still deal with like everyone else? No, I think you like. I have now been in so many rooms with people who have been confronting really horrible things that they've done and things that they're not proud of, and you can't not help but have empathy in those situations. And when you're hearing those stories and sharing your own story and kind of talking about it, you do build a sense of less like judgment. And, I think everyone's on their own journey, and I made choices that hurt a lot of people, and I've had to come to terms with that and try to move forward the best way I can. It certainly has made me less judgmental of other people. I think I'm a lot less like full of myself and my own, it's just I think when you are suddenly very rich and famous, it's very easy to just sort of not think about people that much and really only think about yourself. And confronting your own terrible choices and hearing how other people have overcome their own journeys. And it's just made me a lot more, I don't know. I think I say curiosity and empathy too much like buzzwords, because it's like, you know, this sort of guiding like vision or theme for my work. But it is true. It's like, I think it's made me a lot more understanding and empathetic of the challenges that other people might be going through in a way that I wasn't before.
And while this whole situation is really unfortunate, especially for Ariel and the kids, I do appreciate that Ned seems to have taken this opportunity to self-reflect and try to understand where people come from and their own journeys without judgment. But of course, these are just the words that he's saying, and from here on out, only actions will actually prove to us that he is worthy of that redemption. Someone also asked him why he waited until now to reveal his MS diagnosis.
What kept you from bringing it up earlier? Why were you so afraid to earlier? You know, it happened so close to me starting at BuzzFeed. I was afraid to talk about it. I was afraid of it being like something that I would be perceived differently. And I was still coming to terms with it. And then you kind of get used to keeping it private, and it becomes like that much more scary to talk about it.
And he basically says that he didn't want anyone to look at him differently or treat him differently. And that response was strange to me, because Ned did admit in this live stream that he judged people pretty harshly and that he believed that other people would judge him for his MS diagnosis. That makes me wonder what he thought of Zach, one of the other Try Guys, who has been very open and honest about his chronic illness and how it affects his day-to-day life. Was he judging Zach too for being chronically ill, if that's what he was afraid of other people doing to him? And you know, it could be one of those cases where you don't judge someone for the way that they are, but you feel self-conscious because you're afraid that other people might not think the same way as you and judge you for who you are. I know that I've definitely felt that before, where I am so afraid to tell someone something about myself because it's scary to be vulnerable. But I know if one of my friends or someone close to me came to me and shared something vulnerable with me, I would not be judging them at all. And sometimes you do just get in your head about it because being vulnerable is scary. And perhaps that's also why Ned put on this fake persona, because maybe in some sort of subconscious way, he did not have self-confidence as much as he would like other people to believe. And that led him to self-sabotage and make choices that made him feel good to compensate for his own self-image. What's also interesting is that at the very beginning of the live stream, he essentially admits that he fucked up his entire life.
So, really afraid to talk about it. Didn't want to be like seen differently. And when everything went down and I, fucked up my whole life, at part of coming out of that and going to doing the treatment that I was doing, in talking with the counselors, I really realized that there was a lot I was keeping bottled up and compartmentalized, and just having a more authentic relationship with myself and being more comfortable with myself was something that I resolved to do.
And I can't argue with that, because he definitely did, and fucked up other people's lives as well. And I'm not entirely sure how to describe it, but that admission alone made me feel, at least, that he was being extremely sincere and actually sharing his thought process and what he actually believed, rather than this weird curated persona or this vulnerable caricature crying on camera that felt so phony, and for once was actually revealing his true self. I feel like this version of Ned was so much more likable, and yeah, I don't think that he was ever going to escape the hate or the backlash from the internet. In fact, I think that any way that he approached his return would be met with a lot of backlash from the public, especially as he betrayed so many people in his life and his own fans. And I think that he, either way, was going to have to ride the wave until people started to simmer down and slowly forget him. However, I do believe that the curated persona he put on did not do him any favors, and I almost wish that this live stream version of Ned was the first Ned that we saw upon his return to the internet, because he did seem so much more genuine. It felt like we were seeing a different Ned, because he felt a lot more genuine than he even did during his time on the Try Guys. And as I was scrolling through the comments under this live stream, people seemed to receive him a lot better because of his sincerity. People don't like to be lied to. I mean, duh. And because Ned presented himself so differently than who he actually was, that inauthenticity really penetrated through everything that he was doing, which made him so unlikable. But regardless, I hope that this is a turning point for Ned. I know that I've made fun of him in the past and dragged him a little bit, but at the end of the day, he is still a human with feeling, with a life, and what he did was pretty horrible, although probably not as horrible as the other horrible people in this world, though that doesn't make it any less horrible. I also don't think that it's the end of the road for Ned if he can continue down this path of sincerity and really show the world who he is. Anyway, this video is a little bit of a shorter one, but I did want to follow up on it because I actually did seem to like Ned after watching this live stream. And you know what? Maybe I'm a little bit too trusting, but don't get me wrong, I am not fully on board the Ned train just yet, still holding my breath. But I do hope that Ned truly learned his lesson and that he can use those lessons to improve his life and to begin repairing those relationships that he destroyed, or even if he's not able to repair them, create new ones that bring him fulfillment. At the end of the day, I just hope that Ned truly learns how to treat himself kindly while also treating the people around him kindly, and that things just keep going up from here. Well, that's all that I have for you all today. But I would really love to hear from all of you. What do you think about this live stream? Do you think this really is the genuine Ned? Or do you think this is just another persona that we're seeing? I'm leaning towards this being the actual sincere Ned, and that he's kind of given up this insatiable desire to be liked by the public, which is why we see him with his guard down. But maybe I'm gullible or naive, because that's also very possible too. Anyway, let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. And hey, if you liked this video, please consider subscribing. That would truly mean the world to me. I'm trying to get to 500 subscribers. It's really exciting to me to see this new community growing, and I'm really grateful for all of you who take the time to watch my videos in the first place and comment on them, like them, and subscribe to my channel. It truly and sincerely means the world to me, so thank you. Alrighty. Well, that's all that I have for you all today. Don't forget to leave me a comment, like this video, and subscribe, and I'll see y'all in the next one.